Hello, this is Heather Gates, and I welcome you to the Stand in the And podcast, where we have honest conversations about the messy complexity of the human experience, where we get stuck, and how we find forward, in the and of it all where many things are true at once. This podcast is designed especially for those of us who want to make things more beautiful and better for everyone, and sometimes need reminding that we are human too. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm starting Pilates for
Oh,
my core and my posture.
how's that going?
Very slowly because it's been hard to get a schedule to go there. So I've had one session on the reformer. Have you done Pilates?
Not on a machine.
Yeah,
That's the
the
machine.
reformer is the machine. It was good. It was intense. And then the day after, where I felt soreness, it was wild, Heather. It was literally like someone had exercised all of the small muscles along my spine. It was very centralized.
Interesting.
And I joked with the I don't know what you call the people, the trainer, I guess, that hey, you guys may be onto something with this Pilates. You never know.
They're like, I think so.
Yeah,
That's
so
why a lot of people do it.
yeah. So on Wednesday, I'm going back for a session where we're going to use what's called the rebounder.
This sounds terrifying.
Yeah, which is basically it's a board on the wall. And it has eye hooks in it, and you attach the springs to these eye hooks, and you do your. I have no idea. That's why I need a trainer to figure out how to do this.
This is what professors are up to in the
This
summer.
is it. This is it. At least old people who are shrinking and are so vain about their height, they're like, I need that quarter inch back.
You're a very tall person.
I am. So it's really silly.
How tall
for me.
are you?
I'm 6'4". So, but
Do you fit on all of their machines?
Yeah, it's so funny. I do. There are adjustments that can be made, at least on the reformer that this studio has. But the trainer who we're working with, she said that they do have what they call a stretch reformer for guys like Wemby, who are like over 7 feet tall. Yeah, really tall.
So it's available for everyone.
It is indeed.
Okay.
And I'm still within the range of, I guess, normal, although not technically, really. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad you're...
breath. Centering breath.
Right, like what got that
It's really important for the core.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Anyway,
well, we'll at least try to breathe.
This is going to be just like the first one, Heather. What was that?
I left all that stuff in.
I know. It was great. When I listened to it, I was like, this works.
See? Here we go. All right. Reformers. And now we have a regimen.
Yes.
We look forward to an update.
Yeah.
Okay. For real this time.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the podcast, y'all. As promised, I'm back today at Duke again with my neuroscience bestie, Dr. Ahmad Hariri, to talk more nerdery with you about the and of brains. Thanks for being up to do this again.
I am so delighted to be back. Getting the first invitation means a lot, but getting invited back means more.
This is a
first. My pleasure, Heather. Thank you.
Yeah, we've not done 2 of these.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm also going to be winging it about what we need to say again and what we don't.
Yeah, we'll both exercise our memory.
Okay, perfect. Because I do think for folks who haven't listened to episode 1,
right,
which we did record primarily around, the frame there was around how we're wired for and.
Yes.
We talked about risk and reward, kind of the fear and pleasure circuitry of an individual. And today I really want us to dig into thinking about the neuroscience of the collective.
Great.
Almost the kind of neurosocial side of things.
Absolutely.
But before we do that, if folks haven't listened to episode 1, it feels like a brief introduction at least.
Okay. Yeah.
To who you are and what you want to share feels like a helpful start.
Of course. So my name is Ahmad Hariri, and I am a neuroscientist here at Duke. And so it's good to have you back at Duke again. I know it's not easy.
I'm wearing
always.
Carolina blue just to keep the universe in balance, so everyone knows.
That's it. And so I study the human brain, and in particular, I and my team use MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, to look at both brain structure and brain function and identify different features of the brain that ultimately we hope will help us understand how 2 people may be at different levels of risk for developing brain disorders, both of the psychiatric type and also of the neurologic type. So everything from depression and anxiety and even psychosis to Alzheimer's disease and dementia and more quote unquote neurological brain disorders.
What got you as a
child, did you
Yeah.
think, "I wanna be a neuroscientist one day?"
No, in fact, I'm so jealous of my own undergrads who major in neuroscience, because certainly, in the Stone Ages when I was an undergrad, that there
Just
was no discipline, at least
mm,
certainly at the undergraduate level. And even at the graduate level, people who studied the brain were embedded in more traditional departments. So in a chemistry department or
hmm,
biology, psychology, of course. And then it really became its own discipline, its own field, with arms, of course, in all of these foundational kind of disciplines. But I certainly didn't envision a career studying the brain.
yeah.
I thought about medicine because my dad was a medical doctor, and I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised, not born and raised, but I was born in Iran. And like so many immigrant families, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, it's the pinnacle of what you can achieve. And my mom is almost over her disappointment at this point with my not becoming a medical
Oh,
doctor.
mama.
I'm still working on her. Maybe I'll share the podcast
Yeah,
with
that'll
her.
make her very proud of us
Yes,
both, I'm sure.
I think
We'll try
so.
to make our moms proud today.
Exactly, I think so. So, in addition to the research that my group conducts here, I teach classes, undergraduate classes, and in one of those, I focus on foundational circuits in the brain that do exactly what you were describing, Heather.
Yep.
They help us identify threat and danger, and in doing so, keep us safe, keep us from harm, and then there are other circuits, a second circuit which overlaps with the first, hence the and of the
Mhm.
brain, which really helps us recognize positive things, enjoyable things, pleasurable things, and motivates us to seek out these experiences and these stimuli. So, one is to keep us alive for survival, and the other I like to think about is helping us really thrive and
Mm.
maximize our experiences.
Survive and thrive. And
Exactly.
again, lots more, I think, on those circuits.
Yeah, oh,
We
yeah.
talked about the BLA,
We
as I
did. Oh,
recall,
very good. A plus.
just to show
A
off a
plus.
little
Yes,
bit.
indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
But y'all listen back, to
Sure.
that one if you want to learn more.
Yeah.
I appreciate I think you do a great job of helping make all of this feel really accessible.
Thank you. I try. My
Uh,
undergrads help me figure it out too.
Good. You've had lots of practice,
Yes,
so
indeed. Lots of
thank you to
feedback.
everybody who's helped him, get here today,
Yes.
mom included,
Yeah.
students included. You know the drill, though, before we get into the topic, we're gonna do an and stand.
You got it.
And I went first last time,
Yeah.
and you already know the thing, so
Yeah.
I wonder if you are ready and
Yeah.
prepared to go first.
Yeah. So now, how superficial or deep should this be? I mean,
Well,
could it be?
that's a you choice. I can go first to
Yeah.
set the
Yeah.
tone.
Would you please?
I will.
Maybe on my third
On
visit,
your
if there is one,
third
I'll go
time, you'll be
first.
ready. Okay. Today, thinking about this, so I just drove in, today, so I've had some car time, but I think what I've been feeling the past couple days is the and of feeling a little bit unraveled and sturdy.
Mm,
Unraveled in a life transition way. Have a kid going to college in a few weeks. So my life as I know it is changing. Doing a lot of thinking. My brain's kind of shaking up some of my beliefs. So, kind of rearranging some things there. And also, I don't feel completely um, like that's the full picture. I
right.
also feel a sturdiness and a clarity and a focus about who I am and what I'm up to. I think, in particular, with work and in relationships. So, yeah, in ways that life is making me feel a little bit unraveled, I'm also trying to lean in to remember what feels sturdy.
Yeah. That's great.
So I think that's the and that I just notice I'm dancing around in right
Yeah,
now.
that's okay. That's really
Yeah.
really interesting that the both the vulnerability but the resilience,
Mhm.
and they're again tied together. So playing off of
Sure.
your and uh, lately, I think more and more as our kids become teenagers, one of them is a teenager, our son and our daughter is becoming a teenager. I find myself in this place where there's tension. Um, to continue to look after them and have expectations of them as children, but also recognizing that they aren't children. They're, young adults in many ways, and to let go. And that is very hard. And I find myself failing again and again in reacting to both of them as if they were small children and not recognizing that they are really, kind of small adults. And I struggle with it. And so that's where I am.
I keep getting chills. You've said it twice, and I felt it both times. The and there for me of holding on and letting go.
Yeah, it's so hard. I don't know how to do it.
And I think, yeah, it is a transition, and I've found in talking to the and of teenage in particular, where you are a bit sandwiched
Yeah,
between little and big,
yeah,
is a tricky and for everybody.
yeah, I think
For the
so.
teens
Yes.
and for us, and
Yeah.
figuring out what our roles are,
Yeah, and
in that.
honestly, I think it's gonna be more about their pushing back and insisting on new boundaries and new expectations more than my recognizing it and bringing it to them.
That's
I'm gonna
fascinating.
keep going like they were little kids, right, needing lots more oversight
Till they help you find the
till they
edge of
say, "You know what?
enough.
Yeah,
Oh,
out with you."
invitation to you then,
Yeah,
my kids,
if
is
they
keep
end up
pushing back.
listening, yeah, yeah.
Keep keep pushing back.
I
Yeah.
think they're gonna
Whew.
do it regardless.
Yeah, so just to honor the things that,
Mm,
um, sometimes I think especially when we show up and talk about science and how the brain works and all this,
mhm,
it can feel really separate from the human experience. So
sure.
I like to continue to ground us in we all are just people trying to figure it out for the first time,
Yeah, for sure.
with everybody else on the planet who's trying to figure out for the first time
Absolutely.
whether it's making a career choice or how to raise a teenager or, yeah, how to be in transition,
Yeah,
that we're all just figuring it out. So
yeah,
I appreciate conversations like the one that we're going to have that help us, kind of ground some of the things that feel anchoring or given all that we don't know and we're figuring out,
yeah.
what has been figured out
Sure,
a little
sure.
bit more
Yeah,
lately.
yeah,
So I think I shared on the last podcast that I do have some undergraduate, which was a while ago,
yeah,
background in neuroscience. And that one of the things that's interesting to me is how much has changed
yeah,
and how fast this field, even just peripherally and kind of in culture, what seems like is different. And one of those things, we talked about the amygdala last time, but
mhm,
one of those things that stands out to me, again,
yeah.
could be that I just was not doing good listening the first go
No,
around,
no, I'm sure that's not
but
true.
I do not remember a conversation around neuroplasticity.
Right,
And in the past many years, I think especially as we think about things like ACEs and resilience,
right. Yeah.
my sense is there's been, you mentioned MRI, that the technology has just
Mhm,
changed, that we understand more about how the brain works now.
yeah.
So, and I think neuroplasticity is important. I know I already said that we're going to talk about kind of the collective brain
Mhm,
today,
mhm.
but neuroplasticity to me is a little bit of the so what.
Okay,
Even
okay.
even last time when we talked and we say, I mean, I shared a little about having, an amygdala that's super active, or I think there's sometimes it's like, oh, understanding how I am is one thing.
Yeah,
Understanding that it is malleable
right.
from that understanding
Yeah,
points me into a different direction. So the way I think about it, not only does the brain shape our behavior,
yeah,
I think our behavior can also shape our brain.
100%.
But tell me what's true.
Yeah, okay, so much there to unpack, and
Okay.
I love that we have the chance to do
Yeah.
so because just from the get-go, I think as part of the greater expansion of the public awareness of how we're studying the brain and what we're learning about the brain, terms like neuroplasticity start to be bandied about very casually.
Right.
Same with neurodivergence or, neurotypical versus atypical, things like this. And neuroplasticity is even more of a potentially problematic term because it is
Oh,
a foundational principle in studying the nervous system.
okay.
But that's not necessarily how it's being used.
Interesting.
Right, so I'm
Great.
gonna do like a little spelling bee thing where
Okay.
I
All
wanna
right.
just so I can provide what I hope to be the most, informative definition, if you
Yeah.
will you please use
Tell me what I think
neuroplasticity
it
in a
means.
sentence? Or you could just tell me outright.
I mean, so I guess I can tell you what I think it's
Yeah,
not.
let's go back to your
So
undergrad
I
neuro.
think I thought your brain is how your brain is,
Right,
period.
Okay.
Like, you have the connections that you
Oh, it's
have.
static.
It can be damaged,
Yeah.
and then it's damaged.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
When I say neuroplasticity now, I
Mhm.
am think that means that our connections can change.
Great.
That if I think of it like, what do they say? What fires together wires
Yeah,
together. Like
exactly.
how
Exactly.
my patterned way of thinking, my patterned way of being that can like wear a rut in the dirt
You
road.
got it. You got
That
it.
it's not just when that dirt road has a rut in it, that's how it is. Like
Right.
there are things, some intentionality that it can shift.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's doesn't have to stay how it is.
Yeah.
It
That's
can
great.
change.
And that's actually much closer to my kind of working definition of
Okay.
neuroplasticity. And that is that it is essentially a term that captures at the level of the brain, of the nervous system, what we would otherwise capture with the term learning. All neuroplasticity is in this context is the brain basis of learning. And so the way you were describing neurons that fire together, wire together, that's kind of a basic principle, and it's capturing the strengthening of connections between neurons that are processing information, which has at some point in time yielded some advantage, either something we wanted to happen or something that needed to happen in terms of early development. And so that's in many ways the most pervasive form, and I think I would argue the most important form of neuroplasticity, the ability to change how neurons in the brain are wired together and how that wiring or circuitry, when we talked about circuitry in the first
Mhm.
podcast we did together, that was essentially the foundation of learning about threat or learning about reward. It's through plasticity, neuroplasticity. Um, there is this kind of more extreme version of plasticity that's related to damage or the loss of input. So, for example, many of us have heard about individuals who lose their sight over some time developing heightened hearing or
Right.
touch or
Other
other
senses.
senses. And so, one of the things we know, and we can actually map with imaging, with functional MRI, for example, is that in an individual who's lost vision through some kind of damage to the eyes or some other means, what was once their visual cortex, so acreage in the brain that had
Right.
been dedicated to processing vision, begins to process other sensory
Hmm.
inputs. So instead of seeing just um, nothing in this visual cortex of a blind person, you may see that when they hear things, there's not only activity in the areas that in all of our brains are processing sounds, but now in what was their visual cortex, you see processing of sounds,
Interesting.
which
So,
you,
and I think that language used of real estate. So, a
yeah,
place in the brain that
yeah,
we used to grow this
yep,
is now growing something else.
exactly. Yeah, because again, when vision is lost and that part of the brain is no longer receiving input from the eyes, it's going to start to pick up signals and receive input from other areas. And when that input begins to result in a better ability to distinguish a person's voice or different sounds that mean different things in our environment, that is basically an input that strengthens those connections because they're helping us. And that's a form of plasticity. And what we see is the basically the newfound capacity of sound to activate parts of the brain that were previously dedicated to vision, to sight.
And in both of those cases, so both in the neuroplasticity as learning
Right.
or is learning
Yeah.
or the basis of learning, and these other kind of repurposed real estate
Right.
examples,
Mhm.
input strengthens connections,
Yeah.
same in both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's
What
just
we're saying is the inputs into our brain. So again, I think this is in part of where my curiosity comes from is
yeah,
before we're talking about kind of how our brain is working
right.
and how that moves from inside to out.
Yeah,
Like what's our
exactly.
experience or our behavior as related to that.
Right.
This to me is kind of putting in
You
reverse
got it.
the flow
Yeah.
to say inputs in strengthen our connections. So when I say behavior shapes brain,
Yeah.
not just brain shapes
No, no,
behavior,
no.
that's what I'm choosing to consume, either choosing or not, I guess.
Yeah.
The inputs that I'm choosing to consume or that I am consuming are shaping the connections in my brain. Like,
100%.
period. That is significant just to recognize.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just raises the bar on, like, be careful what you're consuming
For sure.
because it is wiring
Yeah.
connections to compute, I guess, that.
Right. And I would add, be careful how you're behaving,
Mm.
because if you start to behave in a kind of a habitual way or a stereotypical way, what we see as those behaviors are in fact a reflection of changes that are happening in the brain through plasticity that are making those behaviors more likely to occur, and in some cases become automatic, become almost reflexive, and that can be really problematic.
And, though, I think the sunny side up of all of it
Yeah,
is that it's malleable,
for sure.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I am behaving a certain way, I'm exposed to certain things, and I
Yeah.
guess this is where things like growth mindset and other things
Yes.
come from, and
Yes,
we're just
exactly.
talking about the neuroscience of it.
Yeah.
But that it's 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 changeable
Very much so. It
in a
is.
way that I think that's when I think neuroplasticity, I think that's at the heart of it for me,
Yeah.
is that it's not, "Here's the hardware I have, and it's gonna run forever."
Right.
It is changeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
period.
it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole purpose of the brain, as we talked about last time, is really to help you survive, right? And thrive while you're surviving.
Yeah.
And to do that, the brain has to learn, and it has to be able to update its kind of learning, if you will, based on the most recent experiences that you've had. Otherwise, you're going to continue to repeat behaviors that ultimately are not very successful or beneficial. And that type of individual or system isn't going to last very long.
It's just really it's an empowering I found learning more about that to feel really empowering. And
Yeah,
again, I think I talked some last time about just some of my natural ways of being that felt like they weren't aligned with how I wanted to be.
sure, sure.
And so feeling like through learning and practices and other things that is shiftable over time
Yeah, it is.
feels very hopeful and helpful
Yeah,
to me.
I think one of the things that is important for folks to appreciate is that it's not easy,
Right.
and it requires effort.
Right. It's not
Just
I read a thing today
no,
and now
no,
it's all different.
no, no, no. It requires repetition,
Yeah.
whether it's rote or some other form of learning. It doesn't happen uh, quickly. And unfortunately, as we get older, it becomes even harder, right? It's this idea of it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks,
Mm.
but it's possible, right? If you're dedicated and you put in the effort, just like when you train your body, right? If you want at
Just
any.
when you're in Pilates.
Exactly, right? I wanna improve my core, I wanna improve my posture. I can physically train my body through exercise, and everyone appreciates that.
Yeah.
And it's visible, right, hopefully, right? Your
Yeah.
work pays off,
Yeah.
and you can see improvements. Well, that is exactly what happens in the brain.
You can train your brain.
Just as much as you can train your body. It's just that the 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 end results, the benefits aren't necessarily as obvious to us. They can be much more subtle, and I think they are even harder to attain than physical,
Sure.
improvements in
Right.
our strength or flexibility. It
Yeah.
really takes dedicated effort, but it will happen for anyone who has an a healthy brain, relatively speaking. You're capable of learning anything that you really make the effort to learn.
Yeah.
One of the things that they encourage older, adults to do is pick up a second language, pick up a third language. It's super hard, but if you stick with it, even though you may not become fluent,
Right.
and a native, speaker in a foreign language, the exercise itself is going to reap major benefits for your general cognitive functioning,
I
because it's engaging all of those pathways, those ruts, if you will,
Mhm.
in a new way that, if it's appropriate, will deepen them so they can carry information even better and faster. Or if you are.
New trails.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can chart new trails. You can absolutely do that.
Well, and you mentioned, I think, an aging brain just then. I
Yeah.
do wanna put a pin in
Okay.
that
Yeah.
I have had probably I'm counting in my head a few folks
Yeah.
with curiosity about aging in the brain,
Wow. That's
which
gonna
I
be
think might
podcast
just
number
have
3.
to be number 3 because I really do want us to talk about,
Yeah.
this other piece.
Well, it's also where our research actually is very firmly rooted, for the past 10 years.
So you have
It's
a
all
lot to
about
say.
aging.
You have a lot to say
So
about aging.
sorry, everyone. Even more to say about
Okay,
that.
well, we'll come back and do aging for people that are
Sure.
curious about that, and I think
Absolutely.
in particular, I mean, there's a little bit there,
Yeah.
as you just said, is ways that we can continue to keep those
Yeah.
connections, new connections,
Yeah.
deepening the ones we want and building new ones.
Right.
I mean, just a simple takeaway is learning,
Yeah.
learning new things,
Exactly.
even if it may be challenging.
Yeah. And
So, I gotta bring us back to the
okay,
topic
let's
today
do
or we're
it.
gonna run out
Let's
of
do
time.
it. No problem.
Okay. So last time we talked about, like I said, the and how are we wired for almost this internal conflict sometimes, if you will.
Yeah.
I want to think about the and in this case that is the and between people.
Sure. Sure.
I see all the time and I say that
Yeah.
we are wired for connection.
Yeah.
What do we actually mean when we say that?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it because it can actually start from a conversation we had the first time
Okay.
we met, and that was I was describing to you that we are capable of learning about threat, not just through our direct experiences, but by observing others,
Right.
and even just reading about threat.
Right.
So it's a pretty remarkable way to learn without directly risking life and limb,
Right.
right? You learn through observation, you learn through instruction. That is all about connecting with other people.
Hmm.
So humans learn about human things best from other humans.
Hmm.
That's there's no doubt about that in my mind. I don't think there's any doubt about it in anyone's mind. So we have the most to gain and arguably the most to lose in our interactions with each other.
Hmm.
So, and I see that again and again in the brain and in the product of the brain, which is the mind, if you will, if we can create this kind of really false dichotomy, because for me it's all the same.
Right.
Um, and we know, for example, that there are specific systems and neurons and circuits in the brain that are sensitive to the actions of others. You may have already heard about mirror neurons.
I was hoping we were going to talk about.
So, mirror neurons were discovered in kind of the 80s and 90s by Italian scientists, and they were studying monkeys and monkey behavior and recording their brain activity as monkeys learn new tasks. And what they stumbled upon, really, serendipity is such an important driver of discovery, by the way, um, was that the same neurons they were recording from were active when the monkey either performed a task or simply watched the task being performed, even by the human scientists. And so there was this interesting mimicry of sort or mirroring of activity in these neurons. And so in these early experiments, it was about reaching out, for example, and grabbing a treat, a peanut or drinking fruit juice from using a straw. And what they found was that the same neurons that were activated when the monkey actually was grabbing the peanut or drinking the juice were activated when the monkey was observing
Hmm.
someone else reach for that peanut or someone else drink the juice. So that was our early window into this mirror system. And since then, it's been mapped to different parts of the brain. But generally speaking, these mirror neurons exist to allow us to get a head start on learning through observation. So,
Feels
that's
like there's maybe something else too there, though.
so they can contribute, we
I mean,
think,
it's
to our
empathy.
exactly, exactly.
When
So
I
how,
see Yeah, when I see you experience something and
yeah,
I feel that,
yeah,
I feel the hurt of that
yeah,
indirectly.
yeah, absolutely.
There's something about that that is protective. I don't know what else there is, but I keep thinking about the empathy side
Yeah,
of it.
well, I mean, it's such an important driver of bonding, of social bonding, right? And being not only aware of, but in a way motivated by the experience of others. And so we know, for example, in certain studies that empathy, or at least our kind of likelihood to help, is related to our genetic relatedness. So we're more sensitive to the negative experiences or even positive experiences of our family members and of our
Mm.
closely related biologically kin, but also those with whom we develop strong social bonds over time. So our spouses, our partners, our children. That is all something that is in part built on this mirror neuron system, which is one of many, by the way, in the brain that has this signature of being very much sensitive to what's happening outside of you and specifically what's happening to other people.
So what's another one? So if we think about we're wired for connection, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
When we say wired for connection, we say, well, we have mirror neurons.
yeah, yeah,
Um, what else in the almost like we need each other?
yeah. Yeah, so another one, and a classic one, if you will, is that there are areas in the brain that in humans, in most humans, not all humans, and we can talk about where this diverges a little bit, learn to specifically process and recognize faces. And this happens from birth. You know, you're a mom, I'm a dad, and I know that as soon as your baby is born, they look for you and they pay
Mhm,
attention to your face and they start to learn your face and recognize your face, identity, but also contributes to learning the expressions and what they mean in terms of your inner
mhm.
experiences. And so there's an area on the bottom of our brain. It seems to be a little bit more active. This you're going to love this because it's about asymmetry. It seems to be a little bit more involved in the right hemisphere than the
I
left
knew it.
hemisphere.
It's 1 point for Team Heather
One,
thinks that
okay.
there is hemispheric specialization. That's
That,
all I want to
all
say.
right, there we go. There is some specialization, and so Nancy Kanwisher, the scientist who did a lot of the early work in the human brain with imaging, uh, began to refer to this area as the fusiform face area, or
Oof.
FFA. Now, so what we've learned over time is that in fact, any object or class of objects with which you develop expertise activates the same part of the brain. It just so happens that for humans, a default is to become an expert in recognizing faces
Huh.
because there's a lot of information, not only identity,
So we
right?
have you're saying we have the hardware. So
Yeah,
when I ask how are we wired for connection, you're saying, well, we have mirror neurons
right.
and they do what you described.
Exactly. We have this face
We
processing
have this
region.
face processing region
Yep.
that is the hardware that it's like we're built to recognize each
Yeah,
other.
look for information, right?
Just
Not just, "Hey, you're Heather, I'm Ahmad," or, you're a relative or you're a stranger," but also, "What is your experience right now?"
mm,
I think we did last time about how it's very difficult, if not impossible, to fake an emotional facial expression.
mm.
Darwin, it goes all the way back to Darwin, who argued that these are honest indicators of your experience.
This is why I tell people that I can never get Botox
You need
because
yeah,
I
need
need
to be able
all
to
of
be
that
yeah.
forehead
Uh,
animation that I have. Y'all would just be
I
confused
mean,
because I have a very animated
yeah,
face
I won't name
and it makes
names.
it more clear.
Yeah, there's some Hollywood actors and actresses
Yeah,
who have no
you
facial
can't tell.
expression
So
anymore.
it's interesting when I think about those ways that we may, you know, change this. And again,
Yeah,
no judgment. Do what you want
right.
to
Sure,
with
sure,
your
sure,
face.
sure.
This
But
is
it is
just
gonna
this
impact
is just me acknowledging how much I notice.
Yeah,
Making a joke about it, but how much I do notice emotion on my full
absolutely.
facial expression.
Right.
What is there? So when I think about belonging,
Yeah,
and when I
okay.
think about the need for belonging or the
Mhm.
threat
Sure.
that comes up with
Yeah,
lack of belonging.
right.
Is that more sociological or are there brain is there a piece of we're wired for connection that falls into all of that too?
Yeah, so again, for me, there's never a real distinction between the behavioral, sociological,
Okay.
psychological, and the biological. They are one
Okay.
and the same, in the sense that uh, they are different features or layers of the same thing,
Okay.
right? One is biological,
Yeah,
one
yeah,
is
yeah.
behavioral, so forth and so on.
I
Okay.
just wasn't sure maybe from a language standpoint, like when I
Yeah.
talk about belonging,
Right.
either being wired for desiring belonging
Yeah.
as part of safety.
Yeah.
Maybe it links back to the safety and threat is just kind of we are a communal
Yes.
species.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very social, right? And in fact, I think our survival depends on that extended social human family. You never really hear about a human surviving just on their own, right? We have young who are very much dependent on us and for an extended, prolonged period of
Right.
time compared to most other animals. So this idea that we don't need each other. I'm not even sure where that would come from. The
I
idea
don't know,
that
but it does come.
yeah, it does come. And I don't
I
know.
think culture, right? We have this real sense, I
Ah,
think, here of
yeah,
this independent
sure,
nature and way of being. And I
yeah,
think as are increasingly more technological,
yes, we become
just have a lot of
isolated.
curiosity
Yeah,
around our again, like, well, we can't lose this because humans are wired for connection. So
yeah,
we are wired for the capability
yeah,
and a need, I guess, in some way. I don't know how the need translates
yeah,
on the safety side,
yeah,
but maybe it's part of just our innate being. I don't know.
yeah.
So anything
So
you want to say about
I
kind of how connection
sure.
creates safety or threat?
Absolutely, and I would go even further to say that this kind of this highly social nature of humans is present all the way in terms of our down to our genetics, right? So our genetics, our genes, obviously they are the foundation for all of our biology, and through our biology, our behavior when it comes to the brain, and so everything about a human as a being is designed for social
Hmm.
life, for social experiences. There are plenty of animals, right, in nature that live very solitary lives outside of breeding periods. For example, most wild cats, except lions, live solitary lives for the most part.
Huh. I didn't. Fun fact.
Yeah, yeah. There are some exceptions, but usually individual leopards, for example, or jaguars or lynxes or bobcats, they live solitary lives unless they need to reproduce, right, during breeding seasons or rear young. And in that case, it's almost always the female of the species. Sorry. Humans really buck that trend, I think, more than most, at least in modern times.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. So, okay, back to how this kind of social biology, the social makeup, the social brain, if you will, is important for survival. I think it comes down to the inability for any one person to defend themselves from all threat,
Hmm.
seek out the important pleasures in life and joys and the needs for survival, like food and water, and do that in a way that is somehow also worthwhile, right? Is
Mhm.
also satisfying. We, for reasons that really we can't ever know, but we can speculate about in terms of evolution and the different forces that have shaped humans as they are today, are all about living in groups, right? In living in social networks, and without those social networks, it's I think it was even more impossible. I imagine, I should say, that it was even more impossible for our ancestors than it is for us today,
Mm.
because they didn't have all of the conveniences of modern life, of an industrialized society. They had each other. They had, perhaps, if they were lucky, shelter, maybe some primitive tools, and that was it.
And, I mean, when you said it was harder, I think harder in a basic
Oh,
survival way,
100%. Yeah,
and I do when I think about the things that you just said, basic safety, protection, food,
yeah,
the modernization of that, where I can right now I don't have to partner with you to I have a farm and you have a hog and together we
yeah,
put together what we need. I mean, many, people do collaborate in that way, and we have options that take away some of our drivers for
yeah,
collaboration
and connection.
and connection in that
Absolutely.
way. So I think a lot about what does it mean to be wired for connection
Yeah.
when it's not really about relational,
Right.
social connection for those same reasons.
Yeah.
It's about, you know, health and like, there's
Yeah.
something else
Yeah.
that is more on the thriving side.
Yeah, I agree. And certainly I think what we notice now is as we are increasingly coming to a point where we can live completely isolated lives, physically isolated lives. I would argue that we're still not isolating ourselves from social experiences because,
Right, right,
what
right.
do we do on our phones all day? We're
We're still
constantly,
connecting with people.
yeah.
Yeah,
All we want to know is what are other people up to?
interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe it's really expanded our social networks.
In a way, but I think it gives us this kind of false impression that we don't need physical interactions and social interactions, that we can be okay without it. But what we're finding is higher rates of depression and other kind of mood disorders as a reflection of pulling away or technology allowing us to live more isolated lives from each other. And while we superficially feel like, hey, I've got everything I need, I've got food, I've got
Yeah.
shelter, I've got entertainment, I have money, maybe, what we're starting to learn is that's not enough.
And so what from the brain's perspective, what does the brain have to do with that? What does
Yeah,
the brain have to do with isolation as problematic in some way
sure.
from thriving?
So there one way that I think we can bring this to the brain and our biology is considering how dopamine, right, which
Ah,
is an important neuromodulator. Most people have heard about dopamine as being the liking drug or
yeah,
the
like
love
happy.
chemical. Yeah, that's all BS, by the way. Dopamine has no direct role in our what we call hedonic experience, in what we find pleasurable. It only
Because we
contributes.
hear, for
Yeah,
sure, hear
yeah.
people talk about even scrolling like
Oh yeah,
dopamine hits.
sure, sure.
So that's not a thing?
Well, it is a thing, but it's not the thing that people think it is.
Okay, tell us what
So
the thing
what
is.
so the pleasure actually comes from opioids. It's the release of our endogenous opioids. Oh yeah, our brain is replete with basically sources of endogenous opioids
Endogenous meaning
created in our own
we have
bodies.
it already.
We
We're
have
not
it all
taking
right.
it.
Exactly.
It's
So
in us.
so all the basically the drugs that are opioid related that can be abused, that are very dangerous, are all acting on natural receptors in our brains for the endogenous versions, the natural versions
That we already
of
have.
of morphine, of heroin, of opium. Yeah. So
What's it called in the body? We don't call it those things.
yeah, they're called opioids. Then they're
Just call them opioids.
opioids. There are different types of opioids, and more importantly, there are many different receptors, and they
Okay.
they can basically mediate different changes in our brain function and through our brain function and our experiences.
Okay, so connect me to endogenous as in
Yeah,
we make it already in our
you got
body.
it. You got it. And so that's
Chemistry on the inside.
right. That's what gives us pleasure. When you feel pleasure, like, oh my God, that feels so good. That was amazing. That is not dopamine.
Huh.
It never has been and never will be. I mean, I can't say it never will be, but it
Sorry,
never has
dopamine.
been. But okay, so why dopamine is important is that it serves as a way for us to learn about what actions that we've taken and what things in and around us in our environment led to that opioid hit. It's the opioid hit that we find pleasurable. Dopamine helps us learn. Oh,
Oh.
the studio just went dark. But only our studio.
I
Maybe.
think you just have to move around. We
Yeah,
got too still and the lights went
maybe.
out.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
looks like
Is this?
oh,
Hey,
here we
there we
go.
go. We're
Just
back.
kidding.
We're back.
It's been a stormy day in Durham,
That's what I thought.
so
We
it was
lost
very
power.
possible that we lost power, but I think recording was happening.
Yes.
Okay,
All
so
right.
I feel like this maybe is semantic
Yeah. Okay.
because you're saying it's not dopamine,
Right.
it's endogenous opiates.
Yep.
And I think I just heard you say it's more the dopamine learning something about
You got it.
opiates. So
You
it's
got it.
dopamine's connected.
It is connected, but
It's just not
it's
the
only
whole
and
it's not the whole star of the show.
no, and ultimately, it's if you have everything happening in your brain with dopamine, but you prevent the opioid release or the opioid release from binding to those receptors, you will not experience pleasure.
Okay, so pleasure.
right?
And we can nerd out on the pathway of pleasure maybe some other day.
Sure, sure.
But either way,
So the way I like to
how's
kind of
connection have to do anything with those two
fair
things?
fair enough. So the way that I would like everyone to think about dopamine and how I teach my students is that dopamine is about wanting.
Okay.
Okay, it makes you want something, and
Okay.
it motivates you to pursue things that you want. And so for that reason, it's very important. And then liking it is about opioids. So putting that aside, what we know is that there are changes in dopamine signaling and downstream, so wanting and liking through opioids that happen in response to social interactions and opportunities for social engagement that look just like they do when it's about food
Hmm.
or water or even sex. So that's where the
When we say
connection.
we're wired for connection,
Yeah,
we're wired for
that,
connection at, or I don't know if that feels like wired. I mean, when I
yeah,
start talking about chemicals and receptors,
right.
um,
There's a
that it's
really,
kind of just the same way it as our other, it's a basic need almost.
yeah.
It's wired as a basic need.
The fact that interacting with another person, right, or even just seeing another person is associated with this dopamine signal tells me that it's just as important as the food that creates essentially like if I recorded from these circuits and just showed you the recordings, I wouldn't necessarily know that this is in response to food, this is in response to sex, and this is in response to getting a nice note from a friend.
Right.
There was a cool imaging study, functional imaging study done, Heather, where they had basically partners in scanners at the same time. So you put one person in scanner number one, you put the other person in scanner number two, and you collect functional imaging data as they were both sending and receiving love notes from each other. Really, really kind of a cool study. And what they found was, well, a number of things. The pattern of activation was indistinguishable essentially from the pattern that would be associated with a hungry person eating something delicious, drinking a milkshake or eating a burger, or a thirsty person getting that much needed drink of water, or a smoker who's been abstinent for 24 hours getting a cigarette. Those signals are, again, virtually indistinguishable from each other in the brain and involve the same neurochemical pathways like dopamine and opioids and the same brain circuits. So it's all converging on the same underlying brain circuitry and foundations.
Mhm.
And so I mean, to me, that's pretty compelling evidence that being social is not something that we can do or not do. It's optional. No, it's as much important for our survival as food, water, and sex.
Yeah, and so there's the why we need it,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay.
we've talked
Yeah.
about connection from a why we need it. We're wired this way. We
Right.
have mirror neurons.
Yeah.
Um, you know, just even from babies, we need each other, and
Yeah.
then we have to figure it out, even if we can DoorDash our food. Right?
That's right.
There are ways. In a lot of the space that I'm occupying on a daily basis,
Yeah.
we need each other because we need each other's perspectives to solve problems.
Absolutely.
So it's collaboration, not necessarily because it's a basic human need
Yeah.
and connection and belonging, a basic human need,
Right.
but it's we got to work together to figure some things out.
Absolutely. And if we don't have the intrinsic, and I don't often use intrinsic or innate, but I think in this case it's warranted. If we don't have the intrinsic or innate drive to seek out others, how do we ever make the connections that are important for, you know, getting anywhere, doing anything?
Right.
Um, as part of this whole 250th birthday of our
Yep.
country, I was reading an article about the building of the Statue of Liberty
Hmm.
and how it involved ultimately a sculptor who had their own way of doing things and building things, connecting with an engineer who turned out to be Eiffel, by the way, who then later made the Eiffel Tower,
Fancy. More fun facts.
figuring out how do you get this giant statue up and staying there. But if one didn't feel the need to seek out another, sometimes incidentally, by the way. It's not necessarily that the guy who designed the
Mhm.
Statue of Liberty put out an ad in the paper saying, "I need an engineer to figure out how to make this thing stand."
Not like me shopping for a
Yeah,
neuroscientist on
that's
the
okay.
internet.
Maybe he did. I don't know. I didn't read the stories that carefully, but ultimately, I think it's this intrinsic or innate drive to connect that allows us to solve the biggest problems that are facing us today and historically.
Yeah, and sometimes we have a hard time connecting to each other.
Sure, sure. Some connections end up being disastrous, but
Well, and so my curiosity, and I feel like I could weave together some assumptions from episode 1 into this one,
okay.
is when I think about if we are wired for connection,
Yeah,
so we're built to have empathy,
yeah,
to work together to solve problems. So with that, because sometimes we talked last time about sometimes our base hardware running is something to interrupt, not lean into.
right.
In this
Exactly.
case, I feel like it's our innate way is collective.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are things that get in the way of that innate way.
You got it.
And if that's we have learned some fear,
You got it.
we have, right? You said we are more connected to those that we have relationship and experience with. So if that's another one where our behavior shapes our brain.
Yeah,
If we're not seeking new connections, then we don't. They don't feel safe. I guess
yeah,
I'm curious what we know about how the brain works. If there's anything that would help us,
yeah,
um, I don't know. It feels like at least I don't see it as much close up. In the work that I do, people are coming together often around a shared problem, like you were just saying, and there's the how do we work together to figure it
yeah.
out.
Understanding is already there that we need each other.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
basic understanding.
yeah.
When I feel the air and energy around me, and
Mhm,
maybe it's not true, maybe it's just being projected to be true,
mhm.
there's an air of we're losing some of that.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that's more fear response related or if there's something else just to leave with us that remember
yeah,
your brain does this.
yeah.
Um,
Well, and
it's we're sensitive to actions.
yeah,
We need to learn to be updated.
right.
And maybe, I don't know what if there's not a willingness to connect, I don't know what the path is, given
Yeah,
what we've just said, that learning shapes our response. And if
yeah,
you have a response that pushes you away
mhm,
from what feels to me like our natural way of being is connection,
yeah.
but there is also this, kind of othering.
Yes, exactly,
So
exactly. So
I'll just stop there and
yeah,
see what comes up for
yeah,
you. Like, what can the brain help us do if I am passionate about that we can do better together?
yeah,
We can do better for each other and with each other.
yeah, yeah,
And, it seems like we're stuck
yeah.
sometimes.
Well, one of the things we talked about last time, Heather, is that if these 2, um foundational systems, the threat and the reward, the keeping bad things from happening and making good things happen, if they come into conflict,
Which
right,
they do.
which they do constantly, the default is for the
Fear
keep
one.
bad things from happening to win out. And
Right.
boy, are we in the middle of a time in our species history where that seems to unfortunately be the default.
Yeah.
Right? And so it and this is all about plasticity. Plasticity isn't by default good. It's learning. You
Right.
can learn lots of bad
Everything.
things.
Right.
And last time we also talked about how there is the amygdala, one of our favorite structures, is very sensitive to what sometimes psychologists call in group out group,
Hmm.
right? And so our brains evolved, and we talked about this as well. When we were social, but not social in the way we are today. Social in that maybe we lived in a tribe of 10 or 15 people, but they all looked like us.
Mm.
They all came from the same place, and we likely more than not
Are
knew them from
related.
birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we have these increasingly diverse, extended, multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic groups, huge groups that we live in or that we learn about. And in that case, the default, as far as we know, of the brain is to react to the out group, the person who's different from you, as a threat. So
Okay,
that
I just want to slow it down
sure,
because we've
sure.
just said we're wired for connection
Yep.
and we are wired
Yeah.
for in-group out-grouping
Exactly.
as it relates to safety.
Right. I would say in terms of like our base operating system or really, I
Right,
would
it's like
describe it as
primitive hardware.
yes, but I would say it's software than hardware because you can change the patterns, right?
Okay, so again,
Yeah.
neuroplasticity.
Yes, exactly, through neuroplasticity, but the default based on the brains that are inside of our skulls, but evolved 250,000 years ago was that the chances of you running into a person, another human that didn't look like you was low.
Right.
And when you did, it was better to assume that this stranger may not have
Stranger
good
danger.
intentions, stranger danger. And so to react with fear. I mean, I can argue, and I think most of us would appreciate that in that context, that's adaptive. That keeps you from, being murdered or being killed or being who knows what, right? But in our modern world, that's not what happens
It's
anymore.
maladaptive.
It's maladaptive. And so
Yep.
simply exposing a person to a different ethnic or racial or cultural group, we find has a huge effect on this amygdala response that drives fear.
Mm.
So if we look at pictures, and this is work that's been done with fMRI, if we look at pictures of people from different racial groups, right? It could be a white person looking at the picture of a black person or Asian person or Hispanic. There is a higher amygdala response to those outgroup pictures than to other white people.
Just based on how your brain
Just
baseline.
just based on that person, what the amygdala sees in that person is different enough to trigger this threat response because you don't know. Now, you show them pictures of familiar people from those same groups, right? That you may know
Right.
from sports or entertainment or who knows what, then that amygdala response is no longer higher. It's exactly the same as you would see for other white people. And it's really as simple as just allowing yourself to become familiar with someone who's different than you. That can result in plasticity that ultimately is associated with reduced threat. And when you have reduced threat, now you have the opportunity to now create some important positive bonds. Does that make sense?
Yes. And because I'm always interested, like I said, in how w- when, like, why does any of this matter?
Yeah.
Why does this conversation matter? Why are we talking about the brain as it
Sure.
relates to the and of things?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's very important to understand how our base, especially innate ways of wiring
Right.
that maybe used to be helpful.
Yeah.
I don't, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
helpful, a very long time ago
Exactly.
are not serving anymore.
Exactly.
And why we brought neuroplasticity into this and talk about things like we have to learn it to update it
You got it. And
is
practice it.
and practice it
Yes.
is this um yeah, there's so much agency that
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
over how we relate to each other.
Absolutely.
And when we remember
Yeah.
that we are built, even that, right, we're wired for in group, out group,
Yep.
if that's what you're saying,
Yeah.
from a primitive level, we're
Yeah.
also not operating every day from our primitive animal brain.
I
Like
hope
in
not.
every other example,
Yeah.
right, we are using this more advanced frontal lobe
Yeah.
thinking brain
Right. Right.
to help us bring all the things together. And again, cue episode 1.
Yeah.
Um, but to navigate the complexity around us and to act in service to the values of what we actually want. So
Yeah.
just this, it feels like just putting another fine point
Yeah.
on not like of mindful
Yeah.
brain ownership
Yeah.
in
And
some way, right?
absolutely.
Mindful humaning
Yeah.
to say that these things that you think, or you may not even be thinking, but some of
Oftentimes not.
these
You
reactivities
got it.
to be mindful and aware
Yeah.
of those and it takes intention to shift.
Yeah, very much so. And that there's so many actors in our world today that are very eager to capitalize on the base, the intrinsic, the reflexive aspects of our nature and of our brains. In
Mm.
other words, they want to continue to incubate and fuel the fear.
Or strengthen, right back to the neuroscience of it.
Yeah,
When you said earlier that input strengthens the
you got
connections.
it.
We
Yeah,
can make those ruts deeper
absolutely.
or we can shift them,
Exactly.
but it takes intention to
And,
shift them.
and awareness, right? So you may be passively listening to the news and you're hearing story after story about, this
What's
group is
hard,
causing
yeah,
harm or that person is causing harm.
right.
And again, going back, this can actually fundamentally alter the way the amygdala, which is a deep ancient structure, it can actually alter through learning, top down learning, how strongly the amygdala is going to now respond to those individuals or those groups.
I
If you're not aware that, hey, this is a bias that is
I'm
actually,
training a bias
you
into
are
my core
you
biology.
got it. You're creating a bias at the level of your brain circuitry. That's easier
Oof.
to, unfortunately, like most habits, they're easier to develop than to break, right?
And it's yeah, it was an important reminder to me in our last episode where, kind of when I think of bottom up and top down,
Very
I'm
good.
talking
Yeah.
about the elevator going up, like amygdala going up to thinking brain.
Yeah.
And also though that the thinking brain can
Right.
upregulate negative, like
You got it.
challenging
That's right.
pieces of
Yeah.
of those natural responses. So
And
yeah, just the awareness, and
yeah,
maybe that's why this feels so important for me to keep talking about with you.
yeah.
Um, is I don't think we all as a collective understand really what's happening
Right.
in
Right.
us.
Yeah.
And the more we do, the more I think you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It puts me in the driver's seat, I feel like, in a different way.
Yeah. Well,
In a less judgmental, like, accept this is how this is,
yeah.
and why, and the responsibility then
Yeah.
to if input strengthens the
Yeah.
connections,
Right. Provide the
what are
input
the
that you want.
inputs?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
What are the inputs,
Exactly.
and how do I make sure that I'm inputting
Yeah.
what is aligned,
Right.
um, with how I wanna be?
Yeah.
And
And becoming aware that input is not any one type
sure.
or one thing. It's
Right, inputs
everywhere.
being a conversation and what you're consuming
Yeah.
visually and
Yeah. A passing remark, by
audibly
someone on
and
TV
right,
could have a big effect on these
right.
pathways,
All the
potentially.
inputs.
Yeah.
All the inputs.
Yeah.
And just this call and, it's probably larger than a brain conversation, but I wanna remind us that we need each other,
Yeah.
and it takes some effort sometimes to help
Absolutely.
figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
You
And you
know
never know where the important help is going to come from, right?
well, and speaking of that, I think we've talked a bit about diversity without
Mhm.
naming diversity
Sure.
explicitly
Sure.
in this.
Yeah.
Um, last time, I don't remember actually whether it was in the podcast or in the hallway,
Yeah.
but I know that you have some thoughts
Yeah.
about diversity from a neurodiversity standpoint.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you just said earlier in this episode that kind of like neuroplasticity, that word means a lot of things to a
Right.
lot of people.
Right.
What does it mean to you? How does it relate to what we're talking about around this kind of collective experience?
Yeah. So,
Um,
do you mean neuroplasticity or neurodiversity? Yeah.
neurodiversity.
Okay. So, for me, and I think it's most helpful to take us back 250,000 years, let's say,
Okay.
where we have our ancestors in small groups. Why would we want individuals within those groups to have very distinctive kind of behaviors and personalities and characteristics and quirks, even, if you will? Why? Why would we want that? So we're speculating, of course. Stephen Jay Gould, I don't know if you've ever read any, he was a famous anthropologist and evolutionary scientist, and he very sternly criticized other scientists for telling what he called just so stories.
Huh.
So we see something today and we create a story for why that is.
Mm.
And he was right. We do this far too casually and far too
Or storytellers.
willingly. We are storytellers. You got it. But I think I think there's room for this type of storytelling. So, in our modern context, neurodiversity, at least for me, in part captures individuals who show different levels of impulsivity or compulsivity or anxiety, even a proclivity to experience low mood like depression. Why is it that there is this range of emotional experience and behavior in humans today? Well, so one argument that can be made is that those types of behaviors and variability in those behaviors actually serve some advantage to our ancestors and to the groups that they lived in and needed to survive. So each individual needs the group to survive. So let's take ADHD, which is the diagnostic label for individuals who tend to have less capacity for kind of long periods of focus and tend to shift their attention from object to object, thing to thing, much more quickly than others. That's kind of a core part. Hyperactivity as well is part of ADHD typically, but it's really more often than not the impulsive behaviors, doing things without really thinking about them, and the inattentiveness, constantly kind of shifting your attention. So in a group, I could tell a story. I'll tell a story where a few individuals with this type of characteristic of being relatively inattentive and more impulsive actually help the group as a whole because they're going to notice something that changes much more readily
Right.
than the other people in the group. They also may be more likely to act impulsively in response to something new. And
Which may
that
help keep the rest of us safe.
it could help, or it could be the next kind of uh,
Opportunity, maybe.
opportunity,
Yeah,
a
innovation.
new food source, a new
Right.
shelter. Hey, you know what?
Creativity.
I don't know why. I just went over that hill today. I know we're not supposed to, and nobody does it, but
Yeah.
I just did it. I felt like and you know what's on the other side of that? Beautiful fruit trees
Yeah.
and a running a spring. And my goodness, if it wasn't for my impulsivity, for not
We'd
thinking
never have
through
found it.
we would have never have found it. Okay, so you have that person, but you also need to balance that, right? You need to balance that with the person who's constantly worried about the next threat, right? And is actually much less likely to go over that hill because they're worried about the tiger or the lion or whatever predator
I
might
think
lie
that's
there.
me.
But yeah, no, but
But I wanna be over the hill, so I'm trying to figure out how to do all the things, and
right.
I
Well,
think my natural wiring would be I would be the scared of everything, like
yeah, and if we think about our lives as being all about social connections
yeah.
and groups, you don't need to be
Well, which
necessarily.
is interesting, and I've had this conversation of like, "No, you need to be you because 'cause you're gonna always move the flag and set the vision, and then I'm gonna come in and think about how to make it work."
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and that it really does if we can let go of some of that, "A leader looks like this, I should be this way,
right.
this is what success looks like,"
I
or some yeah,
and
kind of naming of it that feels
yeah, and
problematic.
I think, Heather, this is a side effect of sorts of our increasingly isolated lives. Right,
Mhm.
so we don't see enough of each other, and certainly in the contexts that are kind of the most revealing, where we can stop and say, "Wow, I think it's really cool that, you know, this person is much more impulsive than I am. Like, they're gonna do stuff that I would never do. I'd be scared to death to do." Well, but I'm also helping keep that person from doing something that's totally, reckless and dangerous because
This is
my anxiety is bad. It's all about kind of at the group level,
right.
it's about establishing a type of balance, which in the individual brain we talked about last time, you have threat, you have reward, and then you have the executor that sits on top and
Mhm.
says, okay, now's the right time to pursue something that makes you feel good. Now's not the right time. Let's be more aware and sensitive to the danger and protect ourselves. This can happen at the group level too.
Yeah, so this balancing out of the "and" of things that
Right.
is within us and among
You
us.
got it. You got it.
And it's tricky, I'll name this one, I think, the various brains, wirings, and I don't even know I'm cautious because I don't know the right I don't know how to say it, right?
Yeah.
I tend to just say, "Well, I'm wired this way."
Yeah. Sure.
Like labels off,
Yeah.
I'm wired this way, my spouse is wired this way.
Yeah.
It means as a team,
Exactly.
helpful because somebody's taking more action and somebody's making a plan.
Yeah.
Experientially, it can drive us crazy
Yes.
when I need this and you need something
Sure.
different,
Sure.
or your natural ways of being poke on my natural ways of being.
Yeah.
You're very active and tappy around and things, and
Yeah.
I'm very sensory sensitive. Like,
Yeah.
it's very Andy to me
It is. It
in that
is.
I can see the net benefit of it.
Yeah. But in the moment,
In the moment, it's something to figure because I can feel in myself
yep.
what it feels like, even from a neuro sensitivity standpoint, to be with other people who are wired more like me,
Yeah.
who understand my experience
Yep.
when I say that I wanna just I cannot handle the tapping of the right, some of
Yeah.
these sound sensitivities that I have. To
Yeah.
be with somebody, it feels resonant to me to
Yeah.
be understood in my
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
and I see the benefit. I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying around there is value in us all being different, and I
Exactly.
just wanna name
Yeah.
that at least interpersonally,
Right.
it can be challenging. I
Absolutely.
suspect this comes up in teams,
Mhm.
right? And certainly
Mhm.
we see it in the collective. And
Yeah.
maybe there's, a point to be made there is that it might feel
Yeah.
tricky
Yeah.
because we're wired more
It's
for same.
yeah, exactly.
But
And
the net benefit to
right.
our collective um thing that we're doing here
Yeah.
as a species,
Mhm.
as an ecosystem
Mhm. Mhm.
is strengthened by the diversity that we bring. We can see problems differently, we can see opportunities differently, we can support and serve differently.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's I think, to use your very nice kind of, analogy of sorts, if you can pause
yeah.
and then just even try to understand what's happening from a different perspective,
Mm,
a more long-term perspective, or
mm.
from just an outsider's perspective. Are things really as bad as I feel they are?
Right. Is he really trying to
Yeah,
piss me off right now
exactly,
with the
right.
volume
Why are
of
you
the TV?
torturing me? Yes,
Right.
yes, 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 for sure, for sure. But I absolutely appreciate and what you say resonates with me about how difficult it can be
Yeah.
when you are interacting with someone who is really different than you. It's very hard to appreciate those differences and recognize how, well, on a grand scale, those are the very differences that have been helpful and, in fact, critical for our
Yeah.
thriving and surviving as a species. They're really core, and I think that's why they are there. They're not going away. If
Yeah.
anything, I think we've become more attuned to these differences between people, and so it's resulted in terms of the clinical and medical side of things in higher levels of diagnoses of ADHD and perhaps treatment. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's not there, it's not real, and that it can't benefit us collectively.
Yeah.
It's just not the way we think anymore. It's this, as you were saying,
Yeah.
as a collective, as individuals. And I don't know enough about this. I have colleagues who study different cultural styles, if you will, individualistic versus collectivistic. Um, and I think it'd be really interesting to to do a deep dive in how within those two different types of larger cultural contexts, individuals see these differences.
Mm,
Right? Are they less kind of uh, alienating and odd and atypical and abnormal in a collectivistic culture versus an individualistic culture?
mm.
Because I mean, at least my rudimentary understanding is in one, you don't really think that much about why are you so different than I am, but rather how can I be more like the group? How can I contribute to the overall well-being
Well,
of
and
my
just
group?
that question of, um, not I'm weird
Right.
and whatever air quote normal
Yeah.
is
Right.
the goal,
Yeah.
which is just problematic from every standpoint, in my
Yes.
opinion, because certainly our culture has set that to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
Um, but more the curiosity around, how can I contribute?
Yeah.
Right.
How is
Right. And
everyone able to
right.
contribute?
How do I contribute? How can I honor
Mm-hmm. Yourself.
how I am?
Yes.
Now, again, I may have natural tendencies that I'm trying to do some inputs to strengthen and be right, shift that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And given the uniqueness, and it feels better to me. I know, right? Diagnosis and other things are helpful in certain contexts. But I increasingly am just thinking about
The
everybody's
spectrum.
brain's a little different,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I don't know exactly where you would put me on whatever chart, but I
Right.
just increasingly feel like I have a sense of how I'm wired.
Yeah.
So often I'm just like, well, I'm wired that I'm sensitive to sound, or I'm wired that I have a really active
Mm.
fear response. So call it what you want to, but just the more I understand about my wiring, here's where I'm going to be more helpful, here's where I'm not. Like
Right.
just kind of honoring,
Yeah.
here's how I'm wired. And the more we understand that, the more I think we can contribute, the more we can be supported, the more we understand we're on a team, we're going to need some more lift to
Yeah.
go, probably going to need somebody that's not me, doing XYZ because I'll
Right.
get stuck in those
Yeah.
ways. So I
Yeah.
think the more we can not pathologize
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
um
Which is far too
everything,
common.
right.
Yeah.
Pathologize everything that I don't even know what normal brain means.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've talked about some basic here's how the brain structures are and here's how responses is, but
Yeah.
even within that,
Yeah.
all the ways that you've talked about it gets shaped,
Right.
we know that everybody's going to be wired in some different way innately a little
Yes.
bit,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sensitive in different ways innately a little bit, and then
Right.
everything we're experiencing changes that.
Yes. Just like you're
Everything
saying.
shapes us and we shape everything
You got
else.
it. It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way
Yeah.
street.
Yeah. And we know, I think you were very generous at the beginning to describe all that we've learned about the brain. But one of the things we talked about last time is that what we've really learned is how a brain works.
Mm.
What we are very far from understanding is how two different brains work differently.
Ah,
We are only scratching the surface, and that's been the bread and butter of our work. It's individual differences. What is it about a brain or
so
two
even when I say
brains?
we're wired differently, like,
Yeah,
what does that actually mean? We're not exactly sure.
we don't know. In fact, we're only in the last few years do we have what are effectively the parallel of growth charts for brain structure and the size of different structures in the brain.
Interesting.
Right? So it's only, I mean,
So you may
literally
be
in the
able to
last few
tell me
years.
soon, you may be able to help me better understand how my brain is unique.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's absolutely unique, as is
Well,
everyone's,
but like
but
how?
how so? Yeah,
Right, how
exactly.
so? And
Right,
right now, it's
right.
more just experientially we understand that,
Yeah,
or through
yeah,
our behaviors and what's adaptive or challenging for us.
exactly. Yeah.
That's how we're figuring it out.
Yeah, or in terms of our scientific approach, we're comparing relative differences,
Mm,
right? So, in a group of people who I can observe or who report higher levels of anxiety, compared to a group that reports lower levels of anxiety, I see, a larger amygdala in the group with anxiety. It's all relative, right? What does it mean to have what if your brain is overall bigger?
right.
You'll have a larger amygdala, might not have anything to do with your level of anxiety. So these norms, these population reference norms, just like BMI or height and weight, as our kids are growing, your doctor, the pediatrician says, "Oh, you're right.
Right on the
Yeah,
curve.
you're right on the curve. You're doing okay." We are only now creating those for the brain, across the lifespan.
One will have to be careful now. I mean, some of those are problematic in important ways too. So we
Yeah,
got to be careful
for sure,
how
and,
we make the chart.
yeah, we wanna be able to leverage that kind of normative, reference in order to be able to, with some confidence, communicate that someone, for example, has a brain or has a hippocampus, the part of the brain that's really important for forming new memories and recalling old memories, that is smaller for their age and biological sex than you would expect, than you would see. So I'm a 54-year-old
But what do you
male.
do with that? I mean, if you have a brain structure that's smaller and you can't change
Yeah.
that,
So
like,
so and I'm cheating. I'm hedging towards our next podcast about
oh,
aging.
about
So
aging.
one of
Okay.
the one of the things you can
We
do
got to
is,
cut this one soon anyway. We're
okay,
getting,
if you're a 54-year-old and let's say your hippocampus is in the 25th percentile of all 54-year-old men, that is a red flag. And
Hmm.
that your hippocampus is much smaller than you would otherwise expect for your age. And that in and of itself, it can't today, but not in the far future, be one more piece of information that your physician can use to say, hey, you're at increased risk for dementia.
Hmm.
Your likelihood of developing dementia is X times greater than someone who had a hippocampus that was in the 50th percentile or in the 95th percentile.
And I don't think I want you to tell me that unless there's something I can do about it.
That fair point. So is it just motivational or is it actionable? And it
Right,
actionable
because
how?
like
Yeah.
in my master's work, I studied public health genomics.
Oh, there you go.
And so getting into even ethics conversations then to go, what's really just because we can know,
Should we?
what's really actually that helpful? And
Yeah.
again, with my
Yeah.
active Amy, I'm
Yeah.
like, she can have TMI,
Right. Yes.
right? If I don't need one more thing just to be worried about,
Yeah.
but if it's something, like we're talking about today, is input strengthens connections.
Right.
If I desire this, these are the things I want to make sure that I'm exposing myself to reinforce,
Yeah.
right, the wiring that I want to have. Like
Absolutely.
that I feel my agency in that.
Yeah.
It feels some of this stuff gets tricky sometimes when it's just more information that
It's not
there's
actionable.
not much I can
Sure.
do about it.
Yeah.
So that's a challenging
Yeah, and
place that you
that remains, I think, probably the
yeah.
biggest, challenge that we have to meet is now that we have this information, what do we do with it?
So what? Yeah.
So what, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, it can be self-defeatist. You could create a self-fulfilling prophecy if you report to someone that, "Hey, your hippocampus is 75% of the population your age has a hippocampus is bigger." Like, "Well, I guess my memory sucks.
Right, right, right.
I
If it's
shouldn't even
not
try to learn new
because if
things. I
that's
can't
not
do it."
where neuroplasticity comes in, if that's more just brain structure and it is what it is,
Right, yeah, yeah.
um,
So there is a fine line, and
that's a tricky.
from your work in genomics about what is going to be useful in helping improve the well-being of someone,
Mhm.
and what's something that's ultimately gonna, undermine their health and well-being, and that's I feel
Very and.
I feel and I but I feel like we're not even there yet. We have to have the measures locked down first
Yeah.
before we can then say, "Okay, what do we do with them?"
And this is just me from a regular person to the scientist
Yeah.
saying, before you start telling me that, well, make sure you also do the, well, here's what you can do about it part of the research.
Yeah. Well, and we have a lot to learn from
To
genetics and genomics, right?
yeah.
There are systems that have been established to help people make the decision that ultimately may reveal that, hey, they have the Huntington's repeat,
Yeah.
or that they have a genetic mutation that's going to result in early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's not just all information is helpful. It can be helpful or hurtful.
Yeah, these are tricky things, and I mean, I think information can be helpful or hurtful,
Yeah.
applies to a lot of what got shared today.
Yeah.
Like, information back to the very beginning of our conversation around neuroplasticity as
Mhm.
really learning
Yes.
is
Absolutely.
what are we exposing our brains to help it learn?
Yeah, and I would just add that so much of the learning that we've talked about and the plasticity in the brain and between neurons within these circuits is implicit. It happens. It happens because our brains are constantly processing information, and you never know when a particular bit of information is
I
going to
see.
be tied to something emotional or somehow more dramatic, more and it'll become a stronger pathway connection.
Because when you said implicit, I think my brain went to, inherited, and that's not what you mean.
No,
Implicit
no,
meaning it's happening
without your
in a
conscious
passive
awareness.
in a passive
Exactly.
way.
Yeah,
Just
that's right.
as you're going about your life, your brain is taking in information, whether you're sitting down with a book to say,
Yeah,
"Let me understand
right.
people that are this,
Yeah,
have this experience."
yeah.
It's
Like
you're just your brain's constantly it's a sponge
yeah,
that requires no effort
right,
on your part.
and maybe to kinda end with our old friend Amy,
Yeah.
right? So when Amy is upset.
Amy is the name for my amygdala in
Right,
case it
sorry,
wasn't
yes,
brought up.
yes, yes. So when your amygdala is has detected a threat and is now creating the experience of fear.
Right,
You know that,
I do.
but you have no idea when it's learning all these things. You're not aware of that.
I'm not necessarily
Mhm.
sure what got it hyped up. Sometimes I'm
Exactly.
like, "I think I know."
But it is constantly receiving
It
information and
might she may be
constantly
picking up that's
that's
fascinating
it, and
because
it's learning.
I think when you just said what you said about picking the kids up from school, that's what got set me off.
Oh, right,
But
right.
really, Amy has been gathering data on a bunch of other
For
things that
sure.
contributed.
For sure. And you don't know until all of a sudden you're having this fear response or you feel anger or you feel somehow irritable. And you're like, why is this? And sometimes we don't know. A clinical example is, people can develop phobias. So really dysfunctional, disabling levels of
Yeah,
fear. More often than not, they can't say, oh, it was because I was bitten by a dog
right.
when I was 3 years old that I'm afraid of dogs now. Some people can. A lot of phobias can't be at least consciously connected to some negative experience, although everything we understand about the brain and the amygdala leads us to think that there was something.
Yeah. You're
But
gradually being exposed to it
it
somehow
could be gradual or it could be something that
or an
you
event,
don't have
traumatic
conscious.
event.
Exactly, exactly. But there are circuits in the brain, not just in the amygdala, that are forming these associations, that are making these connections. And down the road, they can shape your behavior.
And
We can change it.
our behavior can change it. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
think that's really an important so as I just, run my highlighter back through the notes,
Sure.
from today, that we can our brain shapes what we do. We are wired for connection with each other,
Mhm.
and there is some base model that is naturally in group, out group, and
Absolutely.
whatever that means, right? If
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
practice versus science,
Yeah.
staff versus leadership,
Yes.
my family versus your
You
family,
got it. You got it. Our
my country,
my
my
team
team,
yeah,
right? My
right?
blue, your blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So one of the things
like
that
there's some wiring in there about that.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this, I think the invitation
Yeah.
is to be is just mindful, like awareness
Mhm.
of what's happening. And then I have circled so many times, input strengthens connections.
Right.
And
But
in
for
this
good or
case,
bad.
connections in our brains, right?
Yeah.
Input strengthens connections,
Yeah.
right? In all ways.
Yeah. It's that part is neutral.
That part is neutral.
Neutral.
Be aware that that's true
Right.
and be choosy
Exactly.
about
Exactly.
how you're training your brain.
Yeah, and not just be conscious and choosy, but be aware of when you're being exposed to things that are creating a bias through these learning pathways, through input and strengthening of connections that down the road may shape your behavior in a way that you don't want.
Mhm.
You know? That's harder, right?
Right.
Because it's so much of this is insidious. It's kind of hard to know until you're experiencing it. Like, why am I upset by all this? Or why am I feeling afraid in this situation? I don't have any reason. I can't consciously think of anything. But if we had a way to rewind, I'm sure we could identify biases that we were exposed to that have created these learned pathways that then you're now seeing expressed.
Yeah, I mean, part of it to me is kind of be intentional about where you
Uh,
put yourself,
You got it.
right? How much environment shapes us is what we're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah, and especially our kids, right?
Right.
For good and bad. Anna and my wife and I are very, very pro public schools, much more because of the social experiences that our kids receive there and the other kids they meet and get to know and become familiar with the cultures, more so than the academics, because implicitly they're developing familiarity with lots of different people,
Yeah.
especially people who are not like them. And ultimately, we hope and we have reasons to believe that they will become adults who are not as biased, not as reactive, not operating with the base software, but rather have a software that's been updated through experience.
Updated.
Yeah.
Right. Update
And you
update
can
your
always
software.
update as much as we get our app updates and our OS
Yeah,
updates. You
maybe
can
that's
update
part of
your,
what we're saying
yeah,
is y'all make sure you're doing your system updates.
exactly. Exactly.
Make sure we understand not only how this base model is operating
Right.
and what our natural tendencies are. We have neurodivergence and
Yeah.
are wired lots of ways
Yeah.
in that regard.
And if you don't like something or if you're unhappy with some aspect of the way your brain is functioning, you can change it.
And I assume that that's within some parameter,
Yes, of
right?
course.
So
Yeah.
just to acknowledge, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying if I, that there's everything.
Yeah.
There's a range. All of this is and.
Sure.
So
Sure. Yes, there are limits.
the right
Yeah.
limits.
But I think the limits to how we can change our brains and through our brains, our behavior are much greater. I mean, greater in the sense that they are not as constrictive as the limits we face with our physical bodies.
There's more we can do than
There's
we
more
are
we can
aware
do.
of.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
probably we're underdeveloping our brains. And I
Yeah.
just want to recognize, just like physical,
Yeah.
I will never be as tall as you.
Right.
No matter
Right.
how many
Yes.
Pilates
Yeah.
classes we
But
go
if you were focused and determined, you can learn everything I've learned about the brain.
Right.
I mean, it'll take time.
Right.
But there's no reason that you couldn't
There
do
is
it.
a lot we can change, and we can't change everything.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe is the and to stand in with
Exactly.
that. Is
Yeah.
as we're talking about all of this.
Yes.
Especially I think as, for me, when I think about neurodivergence
Mm-hmm.
and how that, intersects with the conversation that we had previously about
Yeah.
neuroplasticity
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
there are things we can influence, and it's not everything.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, I hope that this episode today is just a reminder of maybe a reminder to not only back to our own awareness about how our environment shapes us, but a call toward each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and a reminder that may take some effort, right?
Yeah. It can be uncomfortable
It
at
can be
times.
uncomfortable
Can
at
be
times,
irritating even.
and is to the benefit of us individually and collectively.
You got it.
So
You got
not
it.
just the collective. I think it's not just to me about um, broadening what's possible or adaptive from a group view of it,
Yeah.
but just what a beautiful broader view
Yeah.
on the human
Yeah.
experience.
Absolutely.
Right, of a greater, right, how my brain now wires and fires differently,
Yeah.
meeting you,
Yeah.
right? A
Right.
Duke
And vice
Duke
versa.
person.
God forbid. No.
Right? The diversity in this room, your
Yes.
country of origin, mine is different,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So just the expansiveness I feel
Yeah.
with the type of learning that comes from diversity of all
Yeah.
type.
Yeah.
And collective
Yeah.
of all type.
And
So
I have to say, I think what you're doing, Heather, is so important. It's such a gift to your audience because just in listening to our conversation, I hope that anyone else can see that it's there's no magic here, right? It's not inscrutable code. And hopefully in our conversation, we've provided your listeners with a vocabulary that they can access and use to discuss and describe their own experiences and those that they share with their family and
yeah.
friends. And from there, I think only really remarkable, beautiful things can happen.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think the more that I know, I try to speak from my own experience as much as possible. The more comfortable I am speaking about my experience, the more I can make it clear, right?
Yes.
No big deal. This is how we're going to coexist and work better together. And
Right.
here's how I'm going to keep my Amy calm down so
Yes,
that we
that's
can
right.
do
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah. And having your Amy upset sometimes
Yeah,
is good for
it's
you
great.
and others.
And everybody.
Yes.
We need her.
Yes.
Right? She is an adaptive part
Yeah.
of the ecosystem.
Yeah. The last thing we want is for everyone to be the same.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is not how nature works. Nature thrives on diversity of our physical presence, but also
Biodiversity.
biodiversity, literally. But in terms of our brains, we really need the diversity because it just gives us all an opportunity to make the most of this time we have together and the experiences that we can share.
I love it. All
Yeah.
right, y'all. We gotta cut this.
We gotta
I know
cut it.
you,
All right.
Ahmad and I could talk about
Yes,
brains
yes.
for
This
500,000
should be
hours.
familiar to the first.
We don't actually know how long we could talk about it because we just run out of
We do.
studio time.
That's right.
They start turning the lights off
Again.
at a certain point. Thank you for being up for noodling over this stuff.
I love being
with
able to
me.
talk with you about it. Yeah.
And folks listening, I hope you'll continue. I mean, again, on my side, I'm just trying to understand this and figure it out.
Yeah.
Dr. Huri represents his perspective.
Yeah.
All this too. There will be other perspectives.
Sure.
Love,
Absolutely.
and I hope we keep talking about them.
That's the important thing.
Right? Like, that's what I love about this is
Yeah.
like, let's just bring our curiosity to each other.
That's it. Yep. Yeah.
Every episode I do, I see the beauty in just sharing a space that is curious.
Yeah.
So part of what I want to remind people and leave people with is just stay curious.
Exactly.
Stay curious about what's happening for you.
Yeah.
And stay curious about what's happening for others and each other in the collective sense.
Yeah. One of the greatest brains in in our history, Einstein. He would always say that what distinguishes me perhaps from any or other people is I'm curious. I'm endlessly curious.
There we go.
And that's all you need. Once you have that, who knows what's gonna
well, and with all of us, right? Bringing our diverse experiences and perspectives and brains together with curiosity.
Yes.
We face some significant challenges right now as a species.
Absolutely.
Like if we look at it just from the science of things.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of challenges ahead of us.
Yeah.
And no one brain,
No.
no one artificial brain,
No.
is going to be able to figure it out.
No.
So I think I want to just keep reminding humans how amazing we are and the potential that we have in ourselves and with each other.
Yeah.
When we really can be thoughtful about how we leverage that.
Yeah. And it takes effort. It's hard work, but it's worthwhile. I can't think of anything more worthwhile that is effortful.
Yeah, I would say it's the right kind of hard.
Yeah, exactly.
So cheers to the right kind of hard.
Yes, indeed.
Stay curious.
Get to work and and enjoy it while you're at it.
There we go.
Yeah.
And we'll see y'all again next time. Maybe Dr. Huri will do episode 3 with us and we'll talk about the aging brain.
Aging, yes.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Next time.
Thanks,
everybody.
The Stand in the And podcast is supported by Human-Centered Strategy, where we help leaders and teams build connection and strategy and complexity so that everyone can flourish. To learn more or to work with us, please visit us online at humancenteredstrategy.com or message me on LinkedIn.